Let's talk about a wild story unfolding in the mortgage world. Imagine this: a huge company is just days away from a billion-dollar vote to buy another company, and then, out of nowhere, they drop a financial forecast so ridiculously optimistic it sends shockwaves through the whole industry. This is the story of UWM, a jaw dropping prediction and a very, very high stakes vote. And here it is, the bombshell itself. UWM CEO Matt Ishbia came out and said he expects revenue to hit as high as $4.5 billion by 2026. Now, just to put that in perspective for you, Wall Street analysts, the folks who do this for a living, they were thinking more like $3.2 billion. That's not a rounding error. That's over $1 billion more than anyone was expecting. This was a direct challenge to what the market thought was possible. Which, of course, leads to the big question. In the world of high finance, timing is everything. So you gotta ask, why drop this massive news right now? Well, the answer has everything to do with a giant deal that was hanging in the balance. To really get the timing, you've got to look at the bigger picture. See, this forecast wasn't just some random feel-good press release. It was a strategic move designed to influence a critical vote that was just around the corner. Okay, so this timeline really lays it all out. Back in December, UWM says, hey, we want to buy this company, Two Harbors. Then, fast forward to March 10th, and bam, they released that huge new revenue forecast. And when was the vote for the deal? March 16th, just 6 days later. That's not a coincidence. No way. All right, so who are the two main characters in this drama? On one side, you have UWM, a total powerhouse when it comes to creating new mortgages. And on the other side, the company they want to buy is Two Harbors. They're what's called a real estate investment trust, and they specialize in something called mortgage servicing rights, which is a really key piece of this whole puzzle. Okay, so before we dive into the deal itself, you have to wonder, where does UWM's incredible confidence come from? I mean, how can they possibly think they're going to grow that much? Well, they claim the secret weapon is their technology. And here's the big idea. UWM's leadership is basically saying they can double or even triple their entire business without having to hire a bunch of new people. In any business, that's the dream, right? Massive growth without the massive costs that usually come with it. And the key to unlocking this, they say, is all about AI. And look, it's not just UWM blowing their own horn here. This quote from some analysts shows that people on the outside are starting to believe it too. They're basically saying, yeah, their tech could really allow them to grow like crazy while their costs stay pretty flat. And that, my friends, is a recipe for some serious profit. Now, to make this whole AI thing a little more real, let's talk about MIA. This is UWM's own custom-built voice assistant. Think of it like a super smart Siri, but one that's been trained on millions and millions of mortgage-specific conversations. It handles all the routine stuff, which lets their human employees focus on the really tricky problems. And we're not talking about a small-scale experiment. The number is just, wow, 12 million. That's how many phone calls MIA is expected to handle in just 1 year. That is an insane amount of work being taken off the plates of their human employees, and it's what lets them scale up so efficiently. And get this, they're not just putting all their eggs in one tech basket. They're also spinning up all these new services for their partners, things like title services and help with loan processing. And these new ventures, they're already on track to bring in hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. Okay, so we've established UWM is feeling pretty good about itself. They've got the tech, they've got the growth plan, but that still leaves the big question. Why this merger? Why go after Two Harbors? What do they get out of it? And just as important, what's in it for Two Harbors? So to get this deal, you first have to understand this one key thing. Mortgage servicing rights, or MSRs. It sounds super technical, I know, but the idea is actually pretty simple. It's just the right to do the back-end work on a mortgage, collecting the payments every month and managing the account, and you get a little fee for doing it. It's the long-term administrative side of the loan. And when you put it all together, you can see why this deal looks like a perfect match, a real win-win. For UWM, it's pretty straightforward. Buying Two Harbors would almost double the amount of MSRs they manage, which would make them one of the top 10 biggest servicers in the country. And for Two Harbors, well, this merger solves a couple of big headaches. First, it helps with some debt issues they were having. And second, it gives them the scale and muscle of a giant like UWM behind them, which really helps them compete and keep customers. So the deal makes sense on paper. UWM is forecasting insane growth. This should be a slam dunk, right? Well,
This is where the story gets complicated. As the vote got closer, the market started sending some really mixed signals.
And this chart just says it all. You've got Wall Street over here playing it safe with their $3.2 billion prediction, and then you have UWM on the other side reaching for the stars with $4.5 billion. That gap you see, that's a $1.3 billion difference of opinion. That's huge. And this conflict was playing out for everyone to see. On the one hand, you had some analysts saying, yeah, we're pretty sure the deal will go through. But then you look at the actual stock market, and UWM's stock price, which is what they were using to buy the company, had dropped. A lot. That's not a good sign. So that's the big question, right? If UWM stock is falling, why on earth would Two Harbors shareholders vote yes to an all-stock deal? Well, this analyst kind of hits the nail on the head. He's basically saying that on its own, Two Harbors is kind of stuck. They can't really grow. So even with a bumpy stock price in the short term, joining forces with UWM is their best shot at creating real value down the road. Which brings us right back to where we started. That crazy confident forecast dropped just days before the vote. Was it a masterstroke, a genius move to show everyone just how valuable the combined company could be? Or was it a desperate gamble to prop up a deal that was starting to look a little shaky? In the end, only one group's opinion really mattered, the shareholders, and their vote would be the final word.